Welcome to my first video of the year. I am JRP James, and here today I am talking about Final Fantasy I, originally released on the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1987. This game launched an entire franchise, and it's so interesting to see where this huge multi-series conglomerate started, and it started out on the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1987. However, I very recently was able to find a copy of Pixel Remaster for my Switch, and I decided to play them all 1 through 6 linearly, and we'll see if I continue after that. But I was very curious about Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3. I've never played any of these games. I grew up playing Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 10, 15, 16, all the modern ones, but I never played Final Fantasy 1 through 6, and I know that 6 is considered by many to be one of the GOATs of the JRPG franchise, and I really want to play that game. But I want to see where it started. And so, even though Square did a really poor job releasing this game in the United States, I ordered an Asian copy, I think from Japan, with the inner box art. And I'm just kind of going through them all one by one. So far, I've completed Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 2, but for today's video, we're just going to focus on Final Fantasy 1. So, as it says in Wikipedia, and not the game so much, the game begins with the appearance of the 4 Warriors of Light, and each one of them is basically, they have an orb, and you're just going and fighting 4 different bosses and lighting up these pillar things. And the story honestly was kind of hard to follow, and I actually had to read Wikipedia to understand what was going on. It wasn't that it over-explained, or I think Final Fantasy 13 specifically falls into the very confusing with terminology phrase. This just, they didn't explain anything. You just kind of get going, which in a way I really liked. This was a very short game. I did use the boosters from the Pixel Remaster, so of course it's going to go quite a bit faster. But even without those, there weren't really side quests. There wasn't a lot of dialogue until you get to the end, and then you get this huge exposition dump that lasts a really long time. And there was something to be said for the simplicity of how the game starts. You're just in. You get to select your 4 characters and their classes, which was a surprise to me. It's not a preset party. It's, these 4 characters, you completely make them your own. Give them whatever class. You can have 4 white mages if you want. I know people online say that that's the way to play the game. But yeah, I was surprised because when I think of Final Fantasy, I think of Cloud, I think of Lightning, I think of all these characters and these parties that come together. But this game, you start with your 4 and that's it. One thing that really took me by surprise when I'm, still talking about story was the time loop aspect, where your characters go back in time, and then the main villain is back there and he sent himself back, and it basically equals to nothing has happened. And in a way, it's interesting. It reminds me of an anime movie or like an OVA or something where it can't contradict the canon of the main thing, so the movie or the special or whatever, at the end of the story, the character's memories are gone. That's kind of what this reminded me of. It's like one of those offshoot stories that kind of never happened but did happen, and it was kind of interesting, but the story was definitely a bit lacking, judging from a 2024 perspective. But for back in the day, I imagine this was pretty cool, and I like that it was short enough that you could do multiple playthroughs pretty easily. But that's pretty much all I have to say about the story, the monsters. I didn't see too much. I was actually a little surprised that, I didn't see any chocobos in this one. I did in 2, but not in this one. However, what is in this one are the airships. You get an airship in this game, and you get a sea ship. I don't know what you would call that. Just a ship, I guess. And you travel across the areas, and I really had a hard time figuring out what to do next in this game. It was very nebulous, and I had to use a walkthrough quite a bit. And I think that for the time, that was probably a good thing, because you're just spending a lot more time exploring the world naturally and going from place to place. And you do get very vague hints from NPCs, but it is very much no, you go out and just figure it out type of thing. I know that Nintendo Power eventually released a walkthrough, So I don't know if they saw this as a problem back then or what, but I was fine with it. A lot of older games I feel like are a little more cryptic like that, where you really have to talk to the characters to figure out where to go, and sometimes even then, it could just be a throwaway line and you're not sure about it. The gameplay itself I found very fun. It was very simplistic but very fun. Um, Standard turn-based. You can turn with the Pixel Remaster at least, you can turn the encounters on or off. You can bump your XP up to 4 times, the gil up to 4 times. The economy in this game, there is none. You're never going to run out of money. You're never going to need more money. So I had it on 2 times, and even then, I can't imagine needing the 4 times boost. I'm sure that's for later games in the series. But yeah, gameplay very good. Again, a very simple JRPG. It was nice. It's almost like comfort food to play something that is simple, something that is not complicated. Even though I was talking about the story and it being simple as a negative, I think it's fine. Sometimes you just want to hop in and enjoy a cozy JRPG for a while, and that goes double for the gameplay in this game. As I said with characters, you create the characters. There's not like a modern character creator, but you can name the characters. I don't even think there's a standard name for them. I selected random names. I hit the name generator a few times and just went with those. You can select the classes. I did go with the 4 recommended classes or the 4 default classes. I kind of wish I chose Red Mage, but like I said, this game is short enough that you could do a replay. Um, One thing that really took me by surprise, and I don't know if this is, I don't know. I was so shocked that there were dwarves and elves in this game, and it makes sense. I know Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy 16 went back to that fantasy route, but like I said, I grew up playing 7 and on, so that being a medieval style setting, almost a Dungeons and Dragons thing, was really interesting to me. And it did take me by surprise. I was surprised that I was blowing up rocks with dwarves. That was interesting for me. I know that this game had been released and remade a couple different times, and like I said a bunch of times by now, I played the Pixel Remaster version of Final Fantasy 1. I think that this is worth playing in 2024 if you have 8 to 10 hours and you just want to get in and play a simple JRPG. It's not going to be a world-ending story. It's not going to be cutting-edge graphics. It's not going to be any of these things. It's going to be a very simple, very cozy JRPG experience. And honestly, I don't regret buying this collection so far. Like I said, I've played 1 and 2. I'm really excited to get to 4 and 6, but I mean, so far, even with 1 and 2, I've really enjoyed them. I honestly don't have that much else to say. The story, like I said, simple, pretty simple. Not what I expected from a Final Fantasy game. Not judging it because at the time, that's what it was. Gameplay again, pretty simple but pretty fun. I liked it. I am a little bit more eager to talk about Final Fantasy 2 because I feel like that was an interesting one. A lot of people consider it the black sheep of the franchise, and when I first started playing it, I messaged my friends and I said, I hate this game. I do not like Final Fantasy 2, but it grew on me. And it's probably because of the Pixel Remaster and everything that's added that makes it a lot easier to play. Because they do that thing that a lot of NES games back then did, where they have a successful first game, second game switches the formula up quite a bit. You know, we saw that with Mario, even though, you know, the situation with Lost Levels. We got that with Zelda and Final Fantasy 2. Final Fantasy 2 was one of those odd cats that had the gameplay change on them, and a lot of people look back at it less fondly than the other classic games. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed 2 more than 1, fully, straight up. And I want to talk more about 2 in its own video, so I'm going to make that video soon. But yeah, real quick, Final Fantasy 1 Pixel Remaster, play it on here if you can. I think that's the most accessible version. I don't know if it's the best version, but for me, it was a lot of fun and a great way to start the year.